Good evening. Is this on? Ah, it is. It's just I'm short. No problem. Good evening. And it's a beautiful day out. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Bruce Barnes. I am the director of the Ron and Donna Fielding director of the George Eastman Museum. And we're thrilled that you've joined us here at the museum and in the Dryden Theater this evening. We're very, very excited about our ongoing partnership with In This Moment. And this is books 7 and 8 in the third volume of the In This Moment chapbook series. The first volume of In This Moment chapbooks were published in 2020 and 2021 when many students were learning virtually. And the chapbooks have continued to be distributed free through the Monroe County libraries. And libraries are institutions right now that need all of the support that they can get. So I encourage you, as always, to visit them. They're always a great place to visit. They're very formative, at least in my childhood. And even now, I think, in the age of the computer, they're very formative. But they do a great deal for our community. And they're going through some tough times. So when you visit them, say thank you. Thank you very much. This is the fifth book launch that the George Eastman Museum has hosted. And as all of our opportunities to collaborate and support and be partners within this moment represent a great pleasure and privilege for us. We are looking forward to seeing you all again in September for the 9th and 10th volumes in this particular chapbook series. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce someone who has made a tremendous difference at the George Eastman Museum and has made a tremendous difference in our community at all sorts of different organizations. The chair of our Board of Trustees, Nanette Noken of Seven Crest Financial Partners. We're honored to have her as our leader. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Nanette.
It's my honor to be here, and I want to let you know that Bruce Barnes does a fantastic job leading this institution. Again, it's my honor to welcome you this evening. I wanted to share with you how committed the museum is in making sure that we're inclusive in terms of inviting people to the museum and also representing artists of traditionally underrepresented peoples in our community. Particularly want to make sure that we invite the residents of the city, including me. Anyways, if you hadn't had a chance to go to Gallery Obscura, which is the museum's community gallery, I invite you to visit it after the presentation tonight or some other time. Gallery Obscura at the moment has partnered with a group of LGBTQ artists who are brave enough to present their works. And it's an amazing group of artworks that I'd like to invite you to see. And now I am pleased to acknowledge the great work of Amanda Chestnut of In the Moment, and I invite Amanda to start our program.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for having us, for your warm welcome here to the Dryden Theater at the George Eastman Museum. Good evening. My name is Amanda Chestnut. I am the co-founder, curator, and publisher of In This Moment. And I'd like to welcome you to our celebration of Christopher Cole's, Dr. Myra Mathis-Uwanogho, and the photographers and essayists who created these chapbooks. I hope you all enjoyed the reception, had time to mingle and enjoy the refreshments. We're very grateful to the Nomadic Archivists Project for being our reception sponsor. You may have noticed some young leaders helping us out tonight. I'd like to offer special thanks to the members of Brighton High School's Replenish Rochester Club, whose help setting up and welcoming guests was invaluable. We're looking forward to watching our partnership grow. Could you guys give us a wave so we all know? Thank you so much. Also, for everyone else, if you could please pull out your phone and turn it on silent. As you are grabbing your phone, if you want to scan that QR code up on the screen, you will see details about our upcoming fundraiser. We keep In This Moment free for people in our community who need these books the most. For students, for people who frequent our libraries, we want this text to remain accessible, and the way that we do that is with your support. We love that you come out to these events. However, we also do need money to keep these events free and open to the public, which we love doing. So we are having a fundraiser concert this summer. It should be an absolutely fabulous show. If you were here for Joe Beard's performance from his book, you will have an idea of what you can expect from both him and Almeda, and they will be joined by Herb Smith and his trio. We're really looking forward to that event in June. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, April Franklin. April Franklin is more than a storyteller. She's a dynamic force dedicated to amplifying diverse voices of Rochester's vibrant communities. April's journey into storytelling was fueled by her passion for community connection and working in healthcare, where she spent over a decade working in the emergency department of URMC. Her love of stories and documentaries inspired her to obtain a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism through SUNY Brockport and a master's degree in television, radio, and film from S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communication in Syracuse University. April got her start in the local Rochester market as a part-time on-air host of WXXI's Weekend Edition. Her love of journalism eventually transitioned to a full-time role at the local NPR affiliate, where she covered pandemic-related human interest stories before transitioning to the housing beat. Beyond traditional media, April's passion for storytelling knows no bounds. She has carved out a unique niche on TikTok, where her lifestyle content has garnered over 2.5 million likes and captivated an audience of 15,000 followers. April is a longtime member of the National Association of Black Journalists and the former vice president of the Rochester Association of Black Journalists. Welcome, April.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Oh, is it on? All right. Good evening. Give yourself a round of applause, because you could have been anywhere, but you're here. And I'm so excited to be able to lead this conversation tonight. I think it's going to be really, really good. So let's get into it. So I'm going to welcome our first luminary tonight, Dr. Myra L. Mathis-Uwanogho, MD, got to put some respect on it, is a faculty member and board certified general adult and addiction psychiatrist at the University of Rochester Department of Psychiatry. Dr. Mathis-Uwanogho is the clinical chief for the Division of Addiction Psychiatry, overseeing strong recovery in the Westfall practice. UR Medicine's outpatient addiction psychiatry services. These clinics include an opioid treatment program, adolescent and young adult services, and comprehensive outpatient programming to meet bio, psycho, social, spiritual needs patients and their families. She's also the program director for UR Medicine's Addiction Psychiatry Fellowship Program. Dr. Mathis-Uwanogho prioritizes access to evidence-based treatment for all patients with substance use and mental health disorders, particularly for those from marginalized communities. When she's not in the office or classroom, you can find Myra at home with her husband and son, or at her place of worship, offering encouragement through song or spoken word. Welcome to the panel, Dr. Myra Mathis-Uwanogho. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
All right. All right, I'm going to welcome our second luminary tonight. Okay. He's got a lot of titles here, I'm telling you. All right, so Christopher Coles is a multi-hyphenate American thinker, sign language interpreter, artist, community organizer, abolitionist, activist, and spoken word poet. That's all, y'all. That's it. A native son of Rochester, Christopher followed the footsteps of his grandmother, the late Reverend Carrie Griggs, as a Black leader and voice of the Rochester community. Under the name Bakari Poet, Christopher as a spoken word poet, creates pieces from like Come Alive and I Love Black People as a battle cry for social and racial justice and community empowerment. As an activist, Christopher also focuses on the roles of the ally and created a social media blog space, The Black Socrates, a virtual space where allies and voices of color meet and discuss racial injustices, majority culture, and allyship engagement. Christopher has been writing since the age of 6 years old and continues to pen The Engaging World. Welcome, Christopher Coles. So I just want to acknowledge that, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I think it's so timely to have you two on stage and to be highlighted this month just because the conversation is just very timely for one, but also I think everybody in this room, whether it's themselves or a family member or friend, has been affected in some way by mental health or even addiction. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we actually get into everything. I ask everybody this in the past, you guys are just doing the work in the community, helping those. A lot of times when you're doing the work, you're not doing it to be seen or to get any accolades or any recognition. So how did it feel to be approached for this project? Either one of you can go.
So last year I was actually blessed to write for Dr. David Paul last year. So that was an amazing experience in itself. And then to be asked about my story, my life was just, it's I still have no words. I think the older that I get, the more that I take less ownership of, or I don't feel the need to become or feel the need to be a certain thing. I just am, and I just do the work that needs to be done. And so for it to come back full circle is it's an honor. So thank you.
So when Chris and I met during the reception, we both shared that feeling of it being like a full circle moment. And I think for me, I agree it was an honor. But in particular, as someone for whom Rochester is home for me, this is my community, this is the space that, this is my village that really poured into me and allowed me to have the capacity to do the things that I'm fortunate enough to do. And so I felt deeply honored to receive this kind of space from home. So you can go and do other things and you can have professional accolades, but when it comes from a grassroots place, when it comes from your community, when it comes from people who know what it's like to be from Rochester, for all of the treasures that this city holds and the unseen treasures that this city holds, that is what made it the most meaningful for me.
That's beautiful. I love how this city does have a lot of what you said, treasures, right? That a lot of people don't even acknowledge that. So it's beautiful that we can all still see the beauty in Rochester despite what's going on. So I'm gonna start with you, Christopher.
Of course.
I really enjoyed reading your story, and I was just like, wow, there's so much packed in here. But I was curious to know, with so much of our experiences, whether being negative or positive, shape who we are,
Yes.
What parts of your upbringing here in Rochester have influenced who you are the most?
Well, I am one of Rochester's sons, so move her up front. So, I'm glad, just for everything that Rochester provided. My grandparents came from South Carolina in 1953 to escape Jim Crow so their grandkids would never know Jim Crow. So they came here, they were hardworking folks. So what I love the most about Rochester is it's probably a mix of the topology, right? So we all have the same landmarks. We have the War Memorial, right? We have Martin Luther King Square. We have, downtown, and you have the West Side, right? So Thurston, Arnett. And, if you're a Rochesterian, you know exactly what those feelings conjure and what sort of community is there and what those communities conjure. So I think it's mainly, the landscape of Rochester, but that landscape also brings with it a community with it too. And I'm just really blessed to have, long-standing people in Rochester, Almeda Whitus, Queen Mother Almeda Whitus, Mama Mel, Mike Boucher, just people that, are staples in Rochester and treasures in Rochester. So I think all those things are a blessing to me. Also, the path that my grandmother laid when she was here on earth. She was fantastic. She was a woman about 5'11" with huge hands. And she had a voice that roared across the room. And she heard a call, into ministry when she was 50 years old. And so by the time I was born, all I knew was Reverend Greggs. I didn't know anything about, I found a picture of my grandmother wearing lipstick. I never knew anything about it. I didn't know anything about the life there, but just she was dynamic. And we were from, a royalty family, a legacy family of people who everywhere, everyone knew who my grandmother was. And her voice stood for truth and stood for power and stood for community. And there was a newspaper clipping in 1968 when we had Rochester riots. And they came to St. Paul Holiness, which is the church that she was assistant pastor of and co-founded. And they did a story on her, and her story that I still have the clipping is about the need for the emergence of black leaders to take over your community and provide that with power. So to be sitting here,
That's beautiful. So, can you explain what you said, what you meant when you said I wasn't raised to be proud of me? Because when I read that, I was like, wow, and you talk about your grandmother and how strong she was. So what did you mean by that?
Ooh, you're getting all the questions.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not, but.
So, as amazing as my grandmother is and my family is, I unfortunately grew up in a home as a child, enduring a lot of things that a kid shouldn't endure. And so, I had a family member, a parent who was a victim of, the 80s and the drug epidemic that was there. So there was a lot of violence in our home. There was a lot of some really harrowing stories. And so the beginning of my formative years were disrupted with, different sorts of violence and different sorts of, panic and fear and things like that. So I think that kind of ingrained in me somewhere. And, and to also to see certain things like this as a child and not have a voice. And to not have a say, and to how the outcome should look, or, we should escape, we should get out of here, that sort of thing. And then to have, another parent, and I love both of my parents, but to have another parent who I was taught to be less than, to be small, to don't play it so big. And so to grow up and have a personality and all this power, and but I have to play it small, and I have to play it, give to the church and submit to this person and submit to that person. And then to be a queer person also, not finding my identity in there. So there was just a lot of voices that I held on to that told me I didn't deserve to be seen. I didn't deserve to be proud. I really didn't have anything that was worthy to give. And so, somewhere along the way through all of these different, events and things, I kind of got that story. So to be successful in the field, and, there came with a large imposter syndrome. So this is being welcomed in the field, being welcomed in certain places, having, a name and people loving what you do, loving who you are, but still kind of not really grabbing onto that message. And so I struggled with that for a long time.
Thank you. Dr. Uwanogho, I seen you nodding when Christopher mentioned imposter syndrome. And as a Black woman and holding many leadership roles and navigating through medical school and residency and all of that, did you ever experience that, especially being someone who's the first in your family to go through medical school, not really having that blueprint?
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Chris, for your openness. So certainly had experienced it, certainly wondered whether or not it was a place that I could be my whole self. I think there were questions about whether or not I belonged, mainly in medical school. And I remember one poignant lecture, actually, where we learned about the demographics of our class, and particularly the backgrounds of our classmates, and where they showed how many people came from families where the individuals had multiple graduate degrees or were doctors themselves, average household incomes of various classmates and members of the medical school class. And it was the first time I really recognized how much I wasn't like everyone else in the room. That wasn't my story, that class background wasn't my background. And at the same time, the things that I'm grateful for in my upbringing, similar to Chris, I come from a ministry family. My parents are here, Bishop Ronald and Pastor Marilyn Mathis.
Thank you for keeping us together.
And so there were things that my classmates had in terms of knowing how to navigate the system. But there were things that I had that I learned from my parents about being able to sit with suffering.
Yes.
And to really hear people, to really listen beyond what's just being said. And those skills are skills that I still use today in my leadership roles. I was trained for leadership by being the Sunday school teacher and the worship leader and the director of the children's ministry and all of the other things that I did.
Did you have the same mother I had?
See? All of those things that I did in our family church culture taught me more about leadership than any leadership course that I've taken. And so while there wasn't that formal education, the blueprint that was there was in my parents' life of service and leadership.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Wow. I feel like you're really giving us some gems here. No, it's just so relatable. I think we've all experienced some insecurity. So, you guys just being so willing and open to share. Speaking of that, you shared about your struggles, Christopher, with addiction.
Yes.
And, having that medical crisis that kind of woke you up.
Yeah.
Talk about how you overcame that, or if you can, because I know the book is very short, so it doesn't get through all of that, but if you have time.
Ooh, okay. So I want to be very careful to not glorify addiction. I want to be very careful, and I'm also not apologetic about that part of my life. So that's one power that I will claim. That I'm not sorry, because what addiction gave me the blessing for was the reality to realize the cognitive dissonance between how I felt and who I was. And so I've had the blessing of looking in the mirror one day and realizing that I went the wrong way. And that in that moment I had failed myself. So addiction it's stigmatized, but again, I tried to heal myself. If you look through all of my life and all the things that I've ever been through, it would make sense. It would make sense that either I was going to be dead or I was going to self-medicate. And so I did the best that I could to try to maintain healing within myself, trying to find exactly the authenticity of myself. There was just so many different things wrapped into one. It was also, it was the first Trump administration. So I was an activist there. I was also, boots on the ground and leading marches and leading protests and having police pull me over 6 times in a year and having drones sent over my house by the police and having threats, death threats, and having, things like that. So all of those, all those things kind of weighed on me, as well as my own personal life. At that time, I was about 38. And I'm thinking, as a 38-year-old black man, I don't have a model of what success looks like for me as a black man. My father, by 38, was already in addiction. My 6 uncles were already in addiction. I had children, my nephews and nieces by then, but I was their example. But at the same time, so kind of what does it mean for a black man to go through how do we find mental clarity? How do we find mental space? How do we find, that moment of breathe or that moment of finding yourself? So it was a very, it was a tough time, but it was a blessing. I remember having a deep conversation with God. And I told him how much I hated him. Told him that he wasn't real. Again, you brought me through all of these different things, and you gave me these skills and these blessings. And 1,000 people in the world love me, and they all think I'm the greatest friend and I'm the strongest friend. But I don't feel good. And I just remember for years just feeling like I was going to break. Like something is going to happen and I'm just not, I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to break. And I remember going to my job and, can I take time off? I just don't feel good. I just don't know what this feeling is. And so I had started to really examine, again, who I am and how I felt. And when I started taking actions on that, so maybe the way I'm healing myself is not the right way. So I joined AA at that time and started looking into maybe I am an alcoholic. Maybe I do have a problem. Maybe. So, right. And after I did that, it was the beginning of 2020, and I suddenly felt ill. And I felt like, do I have the flu? Do I have what's going on? What's going on in my body? And as days went on, and after the new year, it became apparent to me that something is definitely going on with me. Something is definitely wrong. And so what I thought was the flu was heart failure. It was congestive heart failure. And I remember walking into urgent care, and they're like, your heart rate is 190 beats, and we are sending you to the ambulance right now. Do not get in your car. Don't go anywhere. Don't cancel all your plans. You're going immediately to the emergency room. I had a couple surgeries then. One didn't work. The second one, they tried to fix something, and I ended up immediately not doing well. I was, convulsing. My liver shut down. My kidneys shut down, and I was in a coma for 6 days. And but before that, I was having conversations with my Creator, saying that I still expect some sort of miracle. You know what I mean? And here's the thing about me. I didn't care at that moment about life or death. Here I am in this situation. I know I got myself in a situation because I had the addiction shame, right? That, I brought these bad feelings upon myself. And me healing myself, that was also my fault too, by the way I chose to heal myself. Okay, here I'm going to take this situation and I'm going to live in it, but whether I live or die is not up to me. This is your body. You created this. My family will be okay if I'm not here. But again, whatever your miracle is, that'll be it. And on the 6th day, I woke up. And people were waiting for me, and I woke up, looking at everybody like, why are you looking at me? And they're like, I'm sorry, do you know where you've been for the last 6 days? And my poor mother with baby photos and things. So, waiting on me, waiting on her son to wake up. And all I had, I didn't have anything. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I had a stutter. I had all these different things. But what I had, it was gratefulness. I was grateful. So I asked my nurses to open the windows every morning and let me just look out the window and see the sun again. And I was grateful in those moments. I didn't know exactly what the miracle would be. I didn't know what the thing would be. And I was resolved to whatever the outcome was, but I had a conversation with God that if I'm not going to be completely free, then let me die. If I'm not going to live a life that's completely free from here on out, let me die. And so I made a promise with God, and I put all of my things on the altar, and I gave all of my addictions on the altar. And, God asked me to trust her. If you give this to me, I promise you, I will give you something in return that'll be worth it. And it was painful. It was painful because, again, I was in addiction because it worked. I felt a lot better about myself until I didn't. So, but that was the miracle. The miracle was waking up and realizing that I am the most important thing, and that the day should start with me and start with checking in about how I feel and who I am, and letting everybody else carry their bags. And I lost some family members. I have some siblings that I'm not speaking to. People said that was probably the most horrible thing. But the most horrible thing is not knowing how to walk and being paralyzed. So I had to wake up from that and get busy. So, everybody else who I'm not speaking to, if you love me, if you don't love me, that it's really none of my concern. I will be the most important thing from here on out. And I got up and I taught myself how to walk and got out of that hospital.
Well, I can definitely say, everybody is happy that you made it, and we're so happy that you're here to really share that. So thank you for that. Dr. Uwanogho, you work, with people that struggle just as Christopher did. And I believe I read in the chapbook, you said that they have to be willing to acknowledge that they have a problem. As I mentioned, we all have been affected by somebody with addiction or know somebody. So how can we all be better supporters of our loved ones and people in the community who struggle with mental health and addiction?
Thank you for the question. I think this kind of transparency goes a long way. This kind of openness goes a long way. So thank you for that, Chris. I think we're in a time where these conversations are coming out of the shadows a bit more, right? That we're actually willing to talk about it, and we're willing to let people not be okay. Sometimes, maybe. Again, this kind of transparency and bravery to talk about times when you weren't okay are really important for people to hear. 1 in 4 people at any given time are experiencing a mental health concern. 1 in 7 at any given time are experiencing a substance use disorder. In someone's lifetime, so if you have 2 individuals over the course of their lifetime, one of those 2 individuals will experience a mental health condition over the course of their lifetime. So in this room, if there is about, let's say, 100-ish or so of us, then at least 20 individuals in this room are experiencing a mental health condition right now. Half the people in this room have or will experience a mental health condition over the course of their life.
Staggering numbers.
So it's not something that we can it's not something that we can escape, right? If it's not you, it's the person next to you, it's your loved one, it's your family member, it's gonna happen. And so we do need to normalize the fact that it does happen. And we need to acknowledge that our minds and our bodies can only tolerate so much stress. And when we experience that stress, when we have spaces that are accepting and affirming and that let us be in a space where we're not okay, then we can get the support we need to get better. Specifically, though, when it comes to addiction and when it comes to substance use, only about 10% of individuals with a substance use disorder admit that they have a substance use disorder. 90% of people who would meet criteria for a substance use disorder would not say that they have a problem. So your story is not uncommon, where you think it's okay for a long period of time until it's not. And usually when it's not, it's when the consequences of that substance use have become more severe. So we can intervene earlier. And it is helpful for folks to have conversations early on about risky substance use to prevent it from getting so severe where they find themselves facing significant health consequences. There's so much more that I could say, but I'm trying not to overwhelm you all with diagnostic criteria and things you should look out for and all of that. I'm trying not to go there, but I want us to be mindful. And I'll just say briefly, so there are 11 criteria for the diagnosis of a substance use disorder. You only need 2 out of the 11 to meet a diagnosis of a mild substance use disorder.
Shut us up, didn't she?
So that means what you might think of as recreational use might not be as recreational as you think. And hear me when I say no judgment, okay? I'm not judging your relationship with substances. I just want to provide some understanding and awareness of the ways in which our bodies and our minds respond to those substances, and it may be developing a dependence faster than you realize. I'll pause there.
No, it's okay. I really appreciate that. You know, like I said, the question was, how can we be better supporters? So to sum it up, is just having those conversations, those tough conversations.
Well, I would say being vulnerable about your own struggles, having open conversations, and for each of us to be mindful of our own relationship to substances, right? Because you don't want to create a space where you're policing everybody else's behavior. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. We're not looking around saying, oh no, I saw you grab that second drink. I saw you with the, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. That's not helpful. And when you find individuals in your family and your loved ones who are experiencing more severe consequences of their substance use, there are things that you can do to be prepared. As a family member, so people talk about interventions, those kinds of things don't really work, right? Getting everybody together and, telling them everything they've done wrong, and if you don't go to this treatment center right now, then don't mind. That's my 4-year-old son with the staying busy on the phone. But those kinds of things are actually not helpful, where you run down the list of everything that someone has gone wrong and you kind of gang up on them. People need to know that you are there for them unconditionally. Full stop. Now, that being there for them unconditionally doesn't mean that you're going to always give them money every time that they ask. You can have boundaries and you can show love and kindness. And when you have someone in your family who is experiencing more severe consequences of their substance use, they may need your help recognizing that things have gotten beyond where they can control. So they may need you to help them with a boundary that they cannot create themselves. It doesn't mean that you're not loving. It doesn't mean that you're not kind. It doesn't even mean that you don't answer the phone when they call. They should know that you are there, but they should also know that they can't always have access to everything that you have when it's continuing to harm them. And you have to help them with that boundary.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'd love to say more if I could.
I know you have so much more to share, but eventually you're gonna have to send us a bill for all the knowledge you're giving us. Real quick, I know you have something to share, Christopher. You can go ahead.
I would love to say, just without even knowing the numbers, my feeling was that, there are a lot of people who get up every morning and lie to themselves about who they are and how they feel. So the most empowering thing you can do is to look yourself in the mirror and know and check in. And if you do see someone who is having a hard time, we are stigmatized. Addiction use is stigmatized. And it's glorified in certain communities. So as a Black man, we are not allowed to ever have, a moment. If we're not productive, we're useless. If we have nothing to offer the world and we're not working and we don't have money, we're useless. So the minute that we try to find mental health and balance, that comes with a lot of stigma. So be able to check in with your friends and say, are you okay? Because the entire time of addiction, nobody asked me, are you okay? Are you all right? You must be going through something tough. I've gotten the looks, I've gotten the jeers, I've gotten written off. Certainly okay now, but I just wanted to, make sure you check in.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys mentioning the stigma, and that's really kind of why people don't want to admit to themselves, right? Particularly in the Black community, we're having more of those conversations now. I think a friend of mine has said their child was like, I'm not going to school, I need a mental health day, right? And that wasn't even a thing. But, for you, Dr. Uwanogho, what kind of conversations were you having in your household growing up about mental health and how did that lead you to psychiatry?
It's a really good question. So I don't know that we had explicit conversations growing up about mental health. I'm checking in with mom and dad.
Should I give mommy the mic?
So, but here, we didn't use the words. Like, we didn't say depressed or we didn't say anxiety. We didn't name it in a diagnostic way. But I can speak specifically with my mom. She always gave me space to say what I was processing. And if something was hard, she gave me space to process that. And so when I think about mental health, we think about depression as it's like a dirty word. Like there are just things when we name it a diagnosis, people get so uncomfortable. But if we say, oh, they're just going through, everybody seems to have an understanding about whatever, oh, they just going through means. But they're just going through is depression. Like that's probably what that is. We haven't done the full assessment, but I imagine they are meeting criteria for a major depressive episode. And so we have ways of, her nerves are bad, or something, might be an anxiety disorder. So we have ways of talking about things that people experience without naming it in that clinical way. And I think we should just open up ourselves to appreciate that, there may be other kinds of support available for somebody whose nerves are bad, and there may be other kinds of support available for somebody who's just going through it right now. And it is hard to come into a clinical space where you're going to have someone sit there and give you a PHQ-9 and say, in the last 2 weeks, are you having more difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, or are you sleeping too much? Like they'll do a checklist, and the checklist doesn't seem to relate to whatever you're going through. So I do want to acknowledge the reality that when you come into a clinical space, it can be so hard to unpack what you're really going through. And at the same time, let them start with their checklists so that they can at least help you get going in the right direction. And if you can talk to them enough, maybe about one piece of what's going on, the next time you might be able to unpack a little more. Like, we got to have patience with ourselves, because it's overwhelming to say, well, this has been happening since I was growing up, where every time I got into this space around certain people, my heart would start racing and jumping out of my chest, and I would feel like I have to run out the room.
Were you able to go to your parents and tell them, I'm just going through it? Was it a space where you felt comfortable enough to do that?
With my mom, yes. Yeah, for sure. Now, Dad was like, what you know?
Depress these dishes.
That sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
Real quick, because our time is kind of wrapping up here, but I definitely wanted to ask you guys this. It was something that I wanted to ask Stanley Martin last time, and I just didn't get a chance to ask her. But, you guys both work really hard to support and ensure members of our community are treated equitably while holding those accountable who don't. How do you both acknowledge and take care of your own mental health in the process? So we can start with you, Christopher. And we only got 3 minutes, too, just by the way.
3 minutes. No problem. I think that I've always been a protector, and I've always been, strong individual. Just again from the experiences that I've lived through. I just kind of never really taken to bullies, and I don't like people who just kind of exert power over another individual. So I think that in spaces, I've been privileged enough to pioneer these spaces and kick a lot of doors open and provide a lot of access. So I think that that's just something that's naturally in me. But taking care of myself really happened after I realized that I gave too much of myself. It's warrior's heart. It's what Valeria Browder had after her son Khalif Browder had taken his life. It's what Erica Gardner after watching her father be murdered by police. And again, that certain oppression triggers the entire family. Just like addiction is a family addiction. It's not just one person being ill. It's the sickness of the entire family. So I learned to, again, check in with me and learn to when to fight and how to fight and that it doesn't always have to be a fight. Sometimes I can just send your karma back to you. Sometimes I can, I will find other ways to make you accountable. But I don't play about my children in the back. I don't play about these folks back there. Other than that, I'm just trying to be, trying to grow old and, mind my business and stuff. But the activist, is still in the back of the closet.
For me, I'm going to start with some practical things. One thing that I have learned, and I'm very grateful that I'm fortunate to be in a position to do this, and that is to outsource help. And whatever I can outsource, Lord knows, somebody to help me clean, additional help. I'm very, for a while after my son was born, I used a Effortlessly Healthy, a meal delivery service that was delivering healthy meals to my home because I went back to work part-time when he was 6 weeks old, and then I was full-time when he was 3 months old. And he was born in September of 2020, so we had just moved back from Connecticut in July, and he was born in September, and I started working in August of 2020 because I was living in Connecticut for a few years. So outsourcing what I can practically helps me so that I'm not using my free time taking care of all those practical things. My faith, 100%. That is the core of who I am. That is what gives me strength and vitality, that renews me to be able to do the work that I'm doing. And really honest friendship. People in your life that you can share your whole self with. Yes. That is transformative. And people talk about sometimes you find that in therapy, but I'm gonna be honest, I've been in therapy and I never felt like I was 100% myself with my therapist. And to be fair, I have yet to have a Black therapist, and I'm a whole Black, I know, right? And I'm a Black psychiatrist, but I have yet to have a Black therapist. And I know it makes a difference, and I'm waiting to find one. If anybody got suggestions, see me afterwards. But
Coming to see you next week, so.
But
hooking up first.
But I have a small, honestly, really one best friend. The people who know me know who that person is. But friendship where you can be fully yourself, and you can take off all the other hats. That is a lifesaver.
It is. So with that, we're going to just take a moment to reset the stage and bring up our essayists and photographers. So give us a moment here. We just grab some chairs. Yeah, you guys stay up. They're going to bring the chairs up to bring up. You might have to move these down a little bit. Oh, no. Perfect.
Moving furniture.
So what we'll do is, okay, yeah, perfect.
Is that good?
All right. All right, everybody good? We didn't lose you, did we? All right, thank you guys for that. So we're going to bring our first essayist up. She is Team Christopher Coles.
Love this girl.
CaTyra Polland, M.A., is a modern-day Renaissance woman, yes. An award-winning entrepreneur, author, editor, and international speaker. She founded Love for Words in 2017 with the NWBE Certified Editing and Copywriting Company. Her freelance portfolio includes Pathstone, Causeway Community Partners, Mentors Inspiring Boys and Girls, the Rochester Area Community Foundation, and Independent Sector. Her work at the RACF State and Black Rochester Report demonstrates her ability to maintain individual author voices while creating a cohesive narrative. Recognizing a gap in exposure and appreciation for Black authors, CaTyra established National Black Authors Day in 2023. Love that. It's celebrated annually on May 4th. She also founded the Literacy Love Scholarship for high school students in Rochester, New York. She is the mastermind behind the inaugural 2025 Editor's Calendar and the magazine Write, Wine, and Quarantine. I gotta get put on that, okay. CaTyra is an Urban League of Rochester Legacy honoree, an Athena International finalist, a Rochester Business Journal Elevating Women honoree, a Rochester Business Journal 40 Under 40 honoree, an ACES Richard S. Holden Fellow, and a National Point of Light honoree. Welcome to the panel, CaTyra. You got it? I love that. I really love how everybody is so, you just accomplished so, you got so much more to accomplish. It's beautiful. So we're going to bring our photographer up. Dominique Alexandria Simmonds is a creative mother and founder of Caribago Designs, where Carrie Bago. There you go. I'm going to say it one more time. Caribago Designs, where Afro-Caribbean culture and visual storytelling meet. Inspired by her roots and driven by a long passion for art, Dominique specializes in brand authenticity, blending design, photography, and textile work to help clients express their unique identities. She's collaborated with brands across the globe, from the UK to the Caribbean, Ghana to Bali, while balancing life as a single mother and community builder. Known for her vibrant energy and deep sense of purpose, Dominique infuses love, culture, and joy into everything she does. Caribago reflects her belief that the Caribbean is always moving forward, and so is she. Yeah. Welcome to the stage.
Boss lady. Boss lady. Yes.
Give her some time. So, all right, so we'll have our other team come up, Team Uwanogho. So we'll start with our photographer, Christopher Goodknews Cardwell. If you are not already familiar with the name and face, there's a good chance you have already seen a picture taken by Christopher Goodknews Cardwell. As a graduate of the Hampton University, with a BA in psychology in 2007, his career as a professional photographer began in 2009. Since then, Goodknews has built a team like no other, with an impressive portfolio that includes shots of recording artists such as Trey Songz, Jada Kiss, Lloyd, and Fabulous. The Hampton University graduate is also the exclusive photographer for the Rochester, New York Police Locust Club, Hip Hop Weekly, Hips on Deck Magazine, Breakthrough Magazine, Dynasty Series, and Subculture Magazine. Goodknews is continuing to build his brand and elevate his career as a staple within the photography industry. Within the next couple years, he has hopes of capturing fashion editorials for magazine giants like Elle or Vogue. But in the meantime, Goodknews is staying busy offering professional photography for weddings, senior pictures, modeling portfolios, landscapes, and product shots. I see that plug right there. Come on up here. Welcome, Goodknews. So next we'll have our essayist. Chris Thompson is an activist, writer. You're gonna have to help me with this one. Caparista? Beautiful. I think we'll talk about it anyway. Humorist and engineer. He uses the former for to pose the public to the history of struggle, adversity in a palatable way, and he aspires to give people hope that they can triumph over their obstacles. He uses engineering to keep the public rail transit safe, also paying the bills, and foster his Lego addiction. You got a Lego addiction?
It really does.
It's beautiful. That's it. Well, come on up to the stage. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. I got to see your Legos now. I'm curious. I'm really curious. Ah. So I'm going to actually start with the essayist. I think, you guys did an amazing job capturing these very full lives. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like trying to get their whole life story, or thus far, because there's so much more living to do, correct? In this small chapbook. So I'm really curious to know, I ask this every time, but if either of you can share, and we can pass the mic, what was left on the cutting room floor? I wonder what, you maybe really wanted to add in the story that you weren't able to include.
There was a lot. One of the main things that I wanted to put in that there just wasn't any space for was not only does Dr. Mathis-Uwanogho take care of the public, she also takes care of her colleagues and her employees. When I was there, she was extremely friendly, in a real way, with the people who are under her, treating them like humans and not just employees. And she was even talking about things that they did to take care of the employees, whether it be, therapy sessions, whether they have any type of even alternative forms of therapy to take care of themselves. I wrote a whole paragraph about that, and then it was just it was too much to put in. The other thing was just, I touched on it, but just applying to medical school and not getting in the first time and still continuing. I really wanted people, especially since these chapbooks are going to young people, for people to know that just because you failed the first time doesn't mean you failed. You have to keep going. And she was determined, and she did. And look at her now. She's the head of a department. That's, I mean, yeah, it's just like Aaliyah said. If first you don't succeed, oh, you're all wet. Yeah, just get up and try again. And that's about it. And then I just like the fact that her husband is also a therapist. And he's about to get his, I don't know if I'm blowing up your spot, he's about to get his PhD too. So I thought that was the perfect power couple. That's great. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit more. I just didn't have enough space.
CaTyra?
Yes, so I would say there wasn't much cut out. I think I did a great job of capturing Christopher Coles. So he has many titles, he has many talents, he has many gifts and strengths. And for me, when I was interviewing him, the word that came to mind was essence. So there's people and then there's an essence. And that's how I felt about Christopher Coles. So I talk about him interpreting. I talk about, him growing up in an abusive home. I talk about him, asking God to give him the gift of communication, even if it's not with someone of the same, speaking the same language. I talk about him coming from Furlough Street here in the city and then interpreting in Hudson, I think was it Hudson Valley? One city, but it's a city that's very wealthy. So I wanted to show he came from this and blossomed to this. But I also mentioned that he always comes back home. So you'll see in the book where he has interpreted for 9 Inch Nails and Kevin Hart and Ludacris and so many people. But look at where he is right now. He's in Rochester.
Beautiful. Chris, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned, when you were mentioning the stigma and the hurdles that Dr. Uwanogho kind of faces, treating her patients, you mentioned a term, drapetomania, and I thought that was such an interesting point, and I just wanted you to kind of explain that for the audience, with the history. I think it was really poignant.
Okay, so drapetomania. First time I heard about it was actually in a movie called Confederate States of America. There was a physician in 1851, Samuel A. Cartwright. He came up with the term drapetomania to diagnose enslaved people. apologies to any Greek people in the audience. I'm about to butcher your language. Drapetis means escape, and then mania is madness, so escape madness. So he diagnosed any enslaved person who wished to escape with this disease. And it meant that there was something wrong with them because they wanted to be free. So the diagnosis for this, and he claimed that he got this out of the Bible, was regular beatings. That's how you cure drapetomania. That was, it's absolutely a ridiculous term. It's a ridiculous psychosis to want to be free. Another thing that he came up with was dysesthesia ethiopica. That's, this is a term that he came up with for people who are free, who are suffering from this disease. Freed black people, he would say, have this, saying that they are lazy and they actually have less sense for pain than other people, which actually permeates today. So even though this man was a Confederate, doctor, for lack of a better term, he comes up with this drapetomania thing, which is essentially black people hysteria. He also came up with a term for a thing that happens to black people today. Like, I've been to a doctor in extreme pain, and they were just like, oh, just take some ibuprofen, when I probably needed like maybe a hydrocodone. And I get, things stronger than that. They have their own stigma with them. They have their own like warnings about them. But like, if I need a hydrocodone, any of you who know me, I hate taking hydrocodone. But people really need this, and people don't take black people seriously. And this is one of the reasons why it's phenomenal that we have a black doctor here right now, fighting these types of stigmas and fighting against all this baggage that's been piled on. A lot of us don't trust doctors for a very specific reason, and everybody just thinks, oh, Tuskegee experiment. But no, this has been going on since the birth of the nation.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was really, really great that you added that detail to really describe, how Dr. Mathis is going through and how she's trying to help and combat so many things. So I appreciate you sharing that with the audience. So for our photographers, I wanted to ask you both, how did you approach this project? I mean, especially with you, Goodknews, having photographed so many people, and really, this is telling a story. So how did you approach this, and what were your thoughts when you first were asked to do this project?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me a part of this whole project, because this is definitely something phenomenal, something that our community needed. Thank you. Dr. Mathis, she's a very special person, very sweet person as well. So when I approached this photo shoot, me and her had a talk, because I really wanted to understand her as a person so I could bring that through in the photographs. So when she expressed to me that, church and her family, that was a big part of things, and then of course her job is a big part of things too. I wanted to make sure that I went to the actual church that she's a part of to get her during this the sermon, and get her preaching to the congregation, as well as catch her in her work environment, to kind of showcase her in both areas, as a person, as a well-rounded person. So I just wanted to make sure that I captured her essence and really showcase who she is as a person. And it was extremely easy to work with her. She was very nice, took direction very well, so made my job very easy.
Dominique?
Sorry if I sound like an old woman, because this voice is just not working. But Mr. Christopher Coles and CaTyra Polland, actually, it was a pleasure getting them both in the room at the same time to formulate the photo session. When they told me that the shoot had to be done by like March or February, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, we're getting this notice around December, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm an outdoors photographer, preferably. I love the sunshine. I want to capture the glow on your melanated skin. realistically with Rochester, are we gonna get one of those sunny days? Let's be real. So I actually had another program that I curated called the 4x4 Posse Group, and we were doing 4 consecutive days of intimate work with fellow entrepreneurs. And I was gifted a photo studio by Rock Photo Experience, and I had the space during a time that correlated with us to be there. So it was short term. We were able to do the shoot in December and get it out the way, take time to edit and change things as needed. But honestly, Christopher Coles, you were amazing. I've said this behind the scenes, and I'm gonna say it right now. You just were so animated, so much personality just shining through you. And I was excited to meet you and photograph you. I have to shout out Rock Photo Experience, Yolanda Hollister, for, again, giving us the studio space. It was a warm and welcoming experience, and I brought some food. We broke bread together before we got started. We did some behind the scenes, and it was an awesome time.
Awesome. I definitely can see the personality shining through in those photos, particularly the ones where he's smiling. But I did notice in the chapbook, there were certain photos that focused on his style, the things he was wearing. Was that intentional?
Oh, definitely. From head to toe, I tend to, if you know some of my stories of what I've photographed, a lot of times I don't have a lot of time to shoot. And I capture some really amazing moments. And so snap, snappity, snap, snap, but they're all intentional when I do photographs. So I looked you down from head to toe, sir. Had a lot of different artifacts worn on you from the first outfit to the second. And so I tried to get as much as that as possible. I also did photograph him a second time when CaTyra and him had another interview moment, and I popped in for that moment and got some of his different jewelry that was on him. So
beautiful. Dr. Uwanogho's photos in her clinic, only thing I could think of, she seemed like she was joyful. Like, that's the word that I could think of. What was that? Were you guys actually in the clinic? Okay, now what was that like?
Just told her to smile. Nah, I mean, she's a smiley person anyway. So, I mean, it wasn't hard to keep a smile on her face as we were doing the photo shoot. Like I said before, Dr. Myra was extremely easy to work with. So as soon as I put her in those positions where I wanted her, she just lit up. So made my job extremely easy. I could tell that her colleagues really loved her a lot as well too, because we had people that were willing to come in and stand in and be models for the stage situation that we had for her. So yeah, it was like I said, she has a very bright smile. She had that smile on the whole time. Made my job extremely easy. I just had to tell her to stay here, stand here, look here, and get the shot.
And how did it feel to be the subject? I'm pretty sure you're not used to photo shoots.
I am not, and I'm listening to them talk about Christopher's personality, and I'm thinking, I was just like, hi. You weren't getting a whole lot of personality out of me except for, oh, she's sweet. So we'll take it.
And what about you, Christopher?
For me, I've been on stages in front of 5,000 people before, so I'm used to the camera looking at me. I'm used to giving the photographer what they want. So I came ready, like, here's face and here's body. What you need? So I think the unique experience is the fact that we had all just met each other. So I didn't know what her style was. I like the fact that you ash checked me. You know, it's a black thing to like make sure that I'm not ashy. So when on this, and I did this thing on the couch, she was like, bruh, like, you know. So you know, so I mean, but it was also, I tend to just usually my normal approach is to give the photographer something, but I wanted her to, you know, with both of the ladies, and they took very good care of me. It's just I'm just gonna talk, I'm just gonna be present, and I want you to capture what you see. I want you to write about what you want to bring forward. I'm not. It's not about ownership to me. I am me. I am Christopher every day, and I'm not aware of what I'm transmitting, or I don't care about what I'm transmitting. So whatever you capture of me is what I want you to bring forward. And so they did an amazing job.
So you mentioned you guys just met each other. If maybe you can share, CaTyra and also Dominique, how were you able to break the ice? I'm pretty sure it's not hard to break the ice with Christopher, but I'm interested to know how you guys approached it.
Yeah, so I met with Christopher several times because I wasn't able to capture everything in one meeting, as you can imagine. So I met with him, I think, 3 times. So we did have 2 meals together, I believe it was. We spoke on the phone, we text. I would randomly text him asking him, to give me information that I was including, make sure it was correct, accurate. There were a few things he wanted me to take out. So just staying in touch to, again, get to know his personality. He's very honest, authentic, which are wonderful things, but also controversial. So those of you who know Christopher know that's another C that's a part of Christopher Coles is controversy, which I appreciate as, someone who's an editor. I work with Black authors. I always want our voices to be heard, even if people don't want to hear them. So I was very excited to be paired with him, see the work that he does, as a protester, as an abolitionist. So again, for me, it was about multiple touch points. I couldn't just talk to Christopher one time and be able to write what I produced. That had to come with time. And we were able to build rapport, in that short amount of time. Exactly. So I really appreciated the experience, getting to know him. And for me, it was just about staying the course and building rapport. I'm writing about his life. It was very important for me to make sure I was writing something I could be proud of, but also something that he would be proud of, because it's his story. So this was a big deal for me. I usually edit memoirs, so I'm used to reading about people's lives, but to write about it, that was a completely new experience, and it was under 1,200 words. So you can just imagine what else that came with. And then in addition, it was Christopher Cole. So that was another piece of it. But again, thank you in this moment. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, everyone who's involved in the project. It was a beautiful experience, and I'm glad that we have this here in Rochester.
Definitely. And it was a synergy on its own, because I photographed CaTyra a couple of times prior to getting to meet you, Christopher Coles. And from way back when they sent us the email letting us know who the leader was going to be, I'm like, oh my gosh, they put us together? Was this on purpose? That was already a little ice broken, but I don't think typically the group always meets together with the essayist and the photographer, but I wanted that to be there where we're all breaking the ice and just being real with each other behind the scenes. If we have a moment to capture some of that on video too, I invited Miss Jackie McGriff to come and capture. I'm like, I don't know where I'm gonna be, how this is gonna go. We had the music going, see what the vibe is, and just take it from there. And it went lovely, honestly. So thank you.
And I'll switch it over to this team. How were you guys able to break the ice with your luminary?
I think it was extremely easy. We had a meeting at my studio to start off with, me, her, and Chris. And me and Chris already worked together multiple times. We both do stand-up comedy. So we've worked together on stand-up comedy projects a lot. So this was our first time working on a project like this together. But so since we were already familiar with each other, we brought Dr. Myra to my studio. Just had no interview or anything during that time. It was really just a conversation, just to talk, to get to know each other, kind of strategize, and figure out the best way to attack this project. And like I said before, it was extremely easy. We didn't have to do an ass check or anything like that. It's funny when they said the ass check. I see everybody all the Black people in the audience check their hands. I was like, that's funny, but we made it a very chill environment. Just kind of talked, got to know each other there at the studio, and then from there we all had like a little group chat where we would stay in contact with each other, figure out how we wanted to approach it, and then move forward. And I think by the end of it, we got really cool. So it was a pretty good experience.
So they probably didn't because I was like super nervous. I was just like, what do I do? So, but they were very thoughtful and considerate. They were very considerate of me feeling uncomfortable with so much attention.
Especially when it comes to photographing your subject, you want to make them feel as comfortable as possible because that's how you get the best photographs from them when they're just in their natural element, they're in their natural state. So it's like being a photographer and a comedian is kind of wear two different hats. So when I'm actually doing photography, I'm actually a little more serious. I'm not really in comedy mode per se. I'm still like, fun person, but it's like a whole different personality than my on-stage personality.
Well, yeah, Dr. Mathis-Uwanogho gave me pizza, and then we were good from there. We got like, no, she seemed a little bit nervous as she was coming into the room, but like right before I'm going through this hallway that's like kind of intimidating looking when you first go in, but then, her assistant got me a little slice of pizza. I was able to relax. And then as soon as I started talking about, asking her questions and everything, it turns out we had her cousin, as you could read, is Danielle Ponder. And I was like, oh yeah, Danielle Ponder, that's the homie. We're not like tight, but like we both know of each other. We both bonded. Yeah. We both bonded. We both got tear gassed at the same time back in 2020. So that really, forms a bond. And then like after that, when we just started talking, like everything just flowed. So, and I think that was a main thing. I usually find something in the middle of a conversation that will be the main piece of like the entire essay. That's the way I've been going with most of these. And when she said that everybody deserves love and care, that like hit me. And then from there, everything just kind of fell into place.
It's beautiful. Dr. Uno, was there anything, and I forgot to ask you this, but was there anything that particularly struggles that if you're comfortable sharing that didn't make it into the chapbook? Because your story is amazing, what you going through medical school and even being where you are. But, I often wonder, life is so complicated. So I can't imagine, but if there's anything that you're willing to share.
Yeah, so when I saw this question, there were 3 things that came to mind. They do mention in the chapbook about me not getting into medical school the first time I applied. Then during medical school, I had to repeat a rotation. And if I didn't pass the second time I repeated the rotation, then I would not have been able to continue with medical school. So it's like I got to 7 or 8 years of education and was at a point where if I did not pass that rotation the second time, then I would have lost all those years of education plus all of that debt without being able to practice medicine. That was very, very, very stressful. And so for that, and that happened less than 6 months, maybe 7 or 8 months actually before the match, before you find out where you're going for residency. So going from having to repeat a rotation that could keep me from being able to complete medical school to matching at Yale for my residency was just like a huge gift and blessing, and to me, such a testament of like the kindness and favor of God. And so those are professional things. Personally, my husband and I experienced an early pregnancy loss. And 1 in 4 wanted pregnancies end in an early loss. It's common. It actually happens to most women, and we don't always talk about it. Again, it's another thing that I think we're getting better at talking about. But that was hard for us, and we're very, very grateful for Ethan, our son, who is our rainbow baby.
I just want to thank you so much for being transparent. I think sometimes we see people's successes and we think it just happened overnight, but you said live in suffering. What was the term?
Sitting with suffering.
Sitting with suffering. That's so important. So thank you for that. I definitely want to thank everybody for attending tonight. On behalf of myself and in this moment, thank you to our luminaries. Come on, give it up. Give it up. And our artists, essayists, for their dedication to uplifting our communities, and again to everybody who came out on this beautiful day in Rochester. We don't get too many of these. Just for making it out here to this wonderful celebration. So we just want to thank you again.